Right, welcome everybody to today's Two Saints podcast show with myself, Mark C, and my co-host Mark H. How you doing there, Mark?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a perplexing week. Well, actually, it's not that perplexing. It's normal service resume.
Yeah, getting it.
Normal service resume at St. Mary's. But as I say, on the field, let's talk about on the field. Obviously, Leicester result, I have to say, disappointing from my own point of view. And the Shrewsbury job, it was basically a professional job, well done. I thought Mr. Watts was outstanding myself, but we'll come to that later on. And absolutely. I hope everybody that's listening to the podcast is keeping safe and well, and more importantly, looking after each other.
Absolutely right. And as Mark's alluded to, coming up on the first half of the pod today, the Two Saints review of Leicester City 2, Saints 0 and Saints 2, Shrewsbury Town 0. So two results that couldn't be at the upper end of the spectrum, could they really, Mark? Either end of the spectrum there, a 2-0 loss to Leicester, followed by a 2-0 win against Shrewsbury. All I would say is a raft of injuries, and Saints going up against Leicester, who at the moment look as though they're potential champions again, Mark. I didn't think I'd be saying that this time of the year. But
where
do you start?
You've got to say, mate, that I think it did have the feeling, and it's strange because you look at both clubs, right? And in terms of size, in terms of stadia, in terms of fan base, they're more or less on the same footing. But obviously, they get a tie owner who's very interested in the city. I'm very interested in developing the club. And we get a Chinese owner who, isn't involved at all in any way, shape or form. And I just think it mirrors both clubs when you sort of, because Leicester aren't a bigger club than Saints, and I suppose that's what kind of sticks in the claw a little bit. But you look at their squad, because it's a sad indictment when you look at their squad, right?
Oh, I think it is.
And what happens when you've got an owner that's, I wouldn't say hands-on, but he does what he's expected to deliver on, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think the problem as well, Mark, is isn't it? We've got a manager who wanted a small squad, which he's got. Careful what you wish for, Ralph. And obviously we've got an owner, as you say, who's not really put any funding into the playing squad. Now, people will say, oh, he's invested because he brought the club. Whoopee. He brought the club. He hasn't invested. An investment is when you buy a 21-year-old striker with potential who comes on, starts scoring a lot of goals and develops. That is an investment. A player that scores 25 goals a season and wins you the Premier League title, that's an investment. So, buying a football club, greatest respect to everybody, that's not an investment. That's an initial purchase. That's a purchase. An investment is something you do like when you spend money on a training ground or you spend money on the playing staff. That's an investment. And that, sadly, is something Southampton have lacked for 5 seasons. We've had a total of £1 million put in by our owner in 5 seasons. That's where we're at, people. And that, at the moment, unfortunately, is costing us very dearly with the raft of injuries we've got.
That probably showed on Saturday night because you look at, you can say we had people out injured. You can point to that and you can point to the list. And Ralph says it's, the worst that he's ever known it as a manager for injuries.
Yeah.
I take all that on board, Mark, but I just look at the quality of players that they have compared even if we had our best 11 out there, I wouldn't dispute that we would have given them a closer game.
Definitely.
And you have to say that, but I just sort of you look around the sort of players that they've bought under the Thai ownership, and not only that, you look at the fact that they've invested in the city. So that they're invested. If you're turning around and you're given £1 million to build a hospital, in the city, or you're building new training facilities, you're finding cures for diseases because you've set up a medical centre.
My take on it with our owner is very simple. We've heard all about what Saints Foundation have done right throughout the pandemic, Mr. Gow. We haven't heard anything about a single thing you've done during the lockdown. We've not even heard that you've invested £10,000 in the local community for food distribution or food parcels. As far as we're aware, Mr. Gow, you haven't invested a single penny in the local economy or the local community, yet the Saints Foundation have. Shame on you, Mr. Gow.
Anyway, Mark, let's get off that. Let's talk about the game itself. So
it's a good game from Saints' point of view in the fact that they did have his injuries and that, because they forced Kasper Schmeichel into some crucial saves and they rattled the crossbar as well through Stuart Armstrong. So they did have their chances, didn't they, despite the fact they were depleted?
Right. So I would have said that the Stuart Armstrong effort was the only real effort that I seen of note, unless you're going to tell me different. So
no, I mean,
for you to tell me that, because all I was going to say was the only thing that I seen of note was Stuart Armstrong hitting the bar. Oh, and Will Smallbone having a shot that was saved by Kasper Schmeichel. Apart from those two incidents, I struggled to notice anything else on target from Southampton.
Shay Adams, from a first-time pass from Will Smallbone, helped on by Theo Walcott for Shay Adams, tried to beat Schmeichel at his near post. Schmeichel saved that. Obviously, there was also Tielemans clearing off the line after a ball in from Stuart Armstrong. I believe it was. Ball in came in for Stuart Armstrong, and Tielemans, I think it was actually,
I remember that. Now you've said it. I don't remember Shay Adams one, but I remember Tielemans clearing off the line, But anyway, apart from that, all I would say is given the raft of injuries that they had, to probably give a decent, I wouldn't say it was a great account. I would just say it was a decent account of themselves. But unfortunately went down, as I say, 2-0 to James Maddison's goal. And I like the celebration, by the way, where he was keeping people away from him.
It didn't work very well, but he tried.
Yeah, no. I mean, and Harvey Barnes obviously, scored the other goal. But
it's amazing. We were thinking, thank God, Jamie Vardy's having an off day. The problem is when Jamie Vardy has an off day, other players step up, don't they? And unfortunately, Maddison obviously stepped up again, the bugger. And so that was the issue, wasn't it? And Jamie Vardy had one of those rare off days, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I just sort of look at it overall and I thought to myself, we had sporadic chances, and that's how I would term it, sporadic chances. But I always felt that Leicester were kind of in control of the game, to be fair. I wouldn't say they were always going to score at will, because like you said, Jamie Vardy clearly didn't have his shooting boots on. But I think if you've got a backup, if you've got a backup act, then clearly their backup act in the midfield is Maddison and Barnes, And the thing is they do add that something extra, besides obviously having your Tielemans striker. It's a bit like with us, it's Danny Ings. And if Danny Ings isn't firing, you're sort of looking at James Ward-Prowse to work his magic, So at the end of the day, I suppose 2-0. I would have preferred if Jamie Vardy had been injured now to be, before that game, to be perfectly fair. But
and as well, assessing the game as well, it's also a tale of the subs bench as well. I mean, you look at the Leicester subs bench: Cengiz Under, Kaglos Yunku, Ricardo Pereira, Danny Ward, Luke Thomas, Daniel Amati, Napalis Mendy, Kalichi Iheanacho, and Jose Perez. Right, Saints subs bench: Alan Chapchet, Kagolo Chalk, Caleb Watts, Jan Valery, Shane Long, Jake Vokins, Dan Lindeloo, Fraser Forster, Will Ferry. That for me is the tale of the game, mate. Look at the two subs benches. Like you said, quality and lack of it.
Yeah. No, I mean,
you look at that Leicester bench, it's got quality on it, hasn't it?
It's not quality, man. It's lack of. I mean, I've always said quality in the first 11. It's a lack of quality in the first 11, and then it's a lack of depth when it comes to your squad.
Yeah.
Complete lack of depth when it comes to squad.
Well, Ralph Hasenhüttl said we remain competitive, and Carl Walker-Peters said it wasn't our day, and I can't really argue with that, really. I mean, we were competitive, weren't we? That's the thing. And it wasn't our day, to be fair, but
I agree with both comments. I would probably say Ralph's right to say we were competitive. I didn't particularly think that we did anything significant. You would say there was a moment in that game where we could have won it. It wasn't one of those games. Like we went there. I'm not entirely sure what the game plan was. I mean, I'm assuming the game plan was to try and win it, obviously. But the thing is, I they were on ahead enough, and really, as you say, when you look at the subs bench, that sort of sums it up, really. And then the only real substitute you've got coming off there would be Fraser Forster or Shane Long,
Yeah, I mean, Shane Long got brought on with 20 minutes to go, but no offence to Shane. When he comes on with 20 minutes to go, Mark, you sat there thinking, it's not to win the game, is it, to be fair?
No, it's not. I mean, and why is that, Mark? Because we have a striker who's employed as a striker. He doesn't hit the back of the net regularly enough.
Exactly. Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, and obviously the big downside, the big negative from the game was the injury to Will Smallbone, wasn't it? Unfortunately, we were obviously doing a watch along, and at the time when he planted his foot and his knee sort of buckled a little bit, I'd said to yourself, I think he's done his ACL. Yeah. And it turned out he has done his ACL, hasn't he? Which is horrific for him. Looks as though he's going to have about 6 months out, judging by Ralph said, Mark, and that's a huge blow, isn't it, for him and the club?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is this is the danger as well, because obviously with the injuries at the minute, youngsters get thrown into the firing line, and we have talked about this before. Yeah. I'm not convinced about, as many of them being introduced to the first team, because A, not sure if they're good enough, and B, not sure if they're ready. Right now, Will Smallbones came off the back of a fairly long injury anyway, right? And now he's back and he's got another injury. And the thing is, Mark, I said it to you whenever he first burst in the scene. I said, technically very good footballer, but I said, for me, he looks too lightweight. Anytime I watch him, he looks lightweight. I just sort of sit there and I think to myself, at the end of the day, somebody's going to gobble you up.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair to Will as well, I was thinking back over the years and thinking back to players that played for Saints that I would have said probably were quite thin-framed or quite wispy. And I think back to Steve Williams and Mark Wright, who were both quite wispy. But in fairness, despite the fact they were quite wispy, they were both quite strong, weren't they, physically? Yeah, so, they were quite robust. So. With Will, he's of that sort of build, but he's not very robust, is he? For some reason. And maybe it's down to conditioning, as you've said before. I mean, if you look at the problems we're having at the moment, it does seem as though it's down to conditioning, doesn't it?
Let me give you the comparison, right? Now, as I said to you, technically very good footballer, right? That's not the issue for me with Will Smallbone. The issue is too lightweight, right? I'll give you an example. We're going back some. Danny Wallace, whose birthday was yesterday, by the way, people. Happy birthday, Danny.
Danny. Right? What a great player he was.
He burst into the Saints team, never looked back, right? Now, you look at his physique, right? Now, his physique, you look at his calf muscles and stuff like that. Even at the age that he was at when he burst in, and it was around about the same age as Will Smallbone, right? His calf muscles were developed and everything else. Right, exactly. And he was a squat figure. He was small, but he was a squat figure.
Yeah, I think there
was a physique there, but you look at Will Smallbone and you think paperweight.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think if I looked at Danny Wallace at the time, I would have said that Danny Wallace looked like he was in superb condition. He just looked like he was well conditioned. Conditioning wasn't as important back then, but you could argue when you saw Danny when he burst on the scene that he looks a really well conditioned footballer. Steve Moran's another one. He looks a really well-conditioned footballer, as did Kevin Keegan. These were guys that look really well-conditioned, and look how well they played, Can't be a coincidence. So, yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. I see where you're coming from, and I agree.
But it's, the thing is, I'm comparing people of the same age. You're comparing people that are older. But, Danny Wallace was the same age as well. Smallbone in his physique. You knew with him because you looked at him and you thought, he can handle it. You know,
But Alan Shearer as
whereas
well,
I
Mark.
look at Bill Smallbone to think, can you handle first team
Well,
football?
Alan Shearer's another one. If you remember when Alan Shearer broke through at Saints first off, yeah, there wasn't an awful lot to him at the time when he first broke through into the Saints team, but he could look after himself.
Yeah,
You know, he was quite robust. Alan Shearer, to be fair, was quite a slight young man when he first burst into the Saints team.
Yeah.
But he was able to hold his own against some very strong defenders at the time. To be fair, given the era he played in. So so yeah, I certainly agree that players that came through at the same sort of age as Will certainly looked a bit more better conditioned or a bit more robust. And that's why I agree with you. I think it is conditioning because we've seen Michael Obafemi, lack of conditioning there seems to have cost him. Jan Valery seems to have similar sort of issues, unfortunately. And Mo Salah's another one. Seems to be breaking down quite frequently. Is it conditioning? I'm not sure, but it does make you wonder, doesn't it? And obviously, Ralph's alluded to the fact that, regards to conditioning, they can't use a lot of the facilities they've got at Staplewood, can they? Which obviously isn't helping.
No, I mean, exactly. I mean, that's the other difficulty because they can't use the cryogenic chamber and everything else for recovery, which obviously, is impacting on the players in the first team squad. Anyway, moving on to Tuesday night, a little bit more of a happy tale to tell.
Yeah. So it was Saints 2, Shrewsbury 0. Ralph Hasenhuttl was pleased with a dominant display by Saints, and Dan and Lindeloo, it was a dream come true. Finally made his home full debut mark and scored on his first start for Saints.
Yeah,
very tough stuff for Dan, wasn't it? Really.
I don't want to get too carried away, Mark. Because I tend to try and play it down. I'm not one of these people that are gonna tell you the player's a world beater, right? But the one bright spot for me was his performance, obviously, and Mr. Watts' performance, Seb Watts, the Australian. They both really played really well for people who are, very young in age. And it was impressive, and you do hope that they continue to develop, because that's what it's about at this stage for them.
Definitely.
And I put Will Smallbone in the same bracket, and unfortunately at the minute, because of the injuries we've got, they're all being sort of thrown into the lion's den, if you like.
Yeah, and Ibrahim Diallo had another strong game again, and very nearly scored. And I'll tell you what, I had a look at the highlights. If he'd have scored that goal, it would have been an absolute corker, wouldn't it? He picks it up outside the area, goes to past a couple of players, and had it blocked at the last moment. But I'll tell you what, that would have been a goal and a half. And he's really starting to impress me at the moment. Not getting carried away, but he's looking pretty impressive at the moment.
And the other thing that I wanted to mention as well, Mark, which was more impressive to me on the night, much as people talk about, it was great that Dan scored his goal and, Mr. Watts had a great game, but I'm going to say something here, right? And this is more to do with the current sort of situation that we're in, right? Because I look at what they did, and I sort of sit there and I temper it by saying, well, we're playing League One, League absolutely. 2 opposition. Well, I think it's League One they're in. And we're playing that opposition, and they did fantastically well, right? But I have to say, my biggest praise of the night probably goes to our two fullbacks, right? Which were Jan Valery, who's had a rough time, a rough time of it.
Yes.
Even from supporters. And I think at the end of the day, that performance for me, although again it was against lower league side and all the rest of it, but that performance for me just tells me that can we, given the raft of injuries we've got, can we afford even to send them out on loan?
I'll keep him up.
And I still think he has, I've said it before, say it again, he has a lot still to offer our football club.
I still think that he's earned the opportunity to stay. I think his performances last couple of games, Liverpool and this one, he's earned the opportunity to stay, is what I think.
And then I go to I said fullback, so I'll just go to the other side. I mean, did anybody actually realise that it was Jake Fokins playing at left back? I mean, because he didn't put a foot wrong. It was I kind of thought to myself, something, he's having that good a game.
Yeah.
You know, he hardly got, but he hardly got mentioned, but he was having a really good game for me. You know, you would have naturally presumed that was Ryan Bertrand playing there.
Yeah, the thing is as well, you can have games where you don't get mentioned, and it's because you've had a good game. Whereas as a defender, you could have a game where you get mentioned every 5 minutes because you've had an absolute blooming shocker. So for me, with defenders, it's usually a good sign that they've had a great game that they barely get mentioned.
Yeah. Although the other
thing is, if the defenders get mentioned a lot, he's either been really busy or he's been rubbish.
the only downside is Jake, right? Even when I don't care what part of the pitch it's on, just leave the free kicks to James Ward-Prowse. Okay?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, 100%.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and JWP yet again proved why you leave the free kicks to him, didn't he? With an absolute almost carbon copy of the Man United one. I told you he was going to score a free kick this week.
It was, I mean, to me, it was comical because I almost felt like the ball had taken the goalkeeper into the back of the net. You know? But no, it was an excellent free kick and a good solid win, and we're in the next round, 12-15 on Saturday against Arsenal, BAST. I don't know what times it is for you people around the globe, but you know, we're in there. Let's keep going.
Absolutely right. So that ends that brilliantly. So that ends that part of the pod for today. We're going to take a very brief break. When we come back, we'll do Saints Club news, and we've got plenty of that to get through.
It's the Two Marks, CNH, on the Two Saints Show, Fiesta 95 FM.
Right, welcome back, everybody. So, Saints Club news, and here are your headlines. Saints welcome Hummel as the official kit supplier. Refunds for 2020-21 season tickets. Johnson completes permanent move. Slattery completes Gillingham loan. Saints team up with Asante Kotoko. Premier League statement, concussion substitutes trial 2020-21. 1st February TV selections confirmed, and Panting wins sportsbet.io goal of the month again. So starting with fantastic news, Mark, and let me just say this: celebrate good times. Come on. Hummel has been officially unveiled as the Saints kit supplier from 2020-21 season end onwards for the next 5 years. Absolutely brilliant news, Mark. Time to celebrate. Let's all do the conga. Brilliant news.
Absolutely. Over the moon, mate. Over the moon. And let's hope that they do a little bit of retro selection kits while they are the kit manufacturer. Because, yeah, I mean, I know people say, oh, it was the Denmark kit and all the rest of it, but I loved Saints' kit, which was sort of a homage to that, you know.
Do you know what? My favourite kit, Colin Clark played in it, Paul Rideout played in it alongside him. Great players played for us in that strip. Jimmy Case was another one. The two-tone Hummel strip, which is all stripes, but is based on the Denmark 86 World Cup kit. Absolutely fantastic kit, and some great times in that kit as well. Some great players, Rob Wallace, Danny Wallace and others. Fantastic.
I mean, even the old sort of red and white stripes one that they produced was a decent, the next home shirt after that. I even liked we had the yellow away with
one of my favourite away kits. One of my favourite away kits was a white Hummel kit, and it had very pale green stripes on it, chevrons on it. Looked lovely. And I always wanted that kit, never got it on.
I thought it was sky blue, not green, Mark.
It's a very pale green, very, very pale green, almost green. But lovely kit, never got my hands on it, but who knows, maybe we'll get to see that again.
Yeah, no, I mean, any of those, I'd be happy to don any of those again.
I've looked at some recent kits they've done for Denmark and some other kits in red and white, and I've got to be honest, some of the kits I've seen from Hummel in red and white, Mark, fantastic. I would have no problem with adopting them as a Saints kit, even if it was a Denmark-looking shirt. Because I'll tell you what, some of the Hummel shirts at the moment, if you get a chance to look at them, are superb. So I'm really looking forward to it.
I have to tell you, I mean, they're obviously adding to their portfolio because Everton, the manufacture Everton's kit, manufacture Coventry City's kit, and they also manufacture Charlton Athletics kit. Yep. So, they seem to be on the crest of the wave coming back. And the other thing that's sort of nice about it is, I think Hummel sort of, uphold the same sort of values that Saints have, dare I say, because it is, even though they're Danish, it is kind of a family-run business as well still. So So, it's
and also, Mark, there's far less likely to be any sort of instance that we've had like there have been with Under Armour. So that's something to be held and look forward to as well. There certainly won't be any issues on kit dates and stuff, will there? Thank God.
No, Under Armour, I'm going to say it, Mark, Under Armour was a marriage made in hell.
Oh, I agree.
It was a complete marriage made in hell. And this idea that we're venturing into America as well, I mean, all I'll say is, thankfully, that chapter's over and done with.
I'm over the moon about it because, to be fair to you, I actually think Under Armour has been an absolute mess from day one. For a company that size to conduct themselves the way they have is shameful, and they should hang their heads in shame as they walk away. Take the walk of shame, Under Armour. We're glad to see the back of you. Well, I certainly am anyway. Thank God we've got Hummel now.
But I'm glad whatever happened that, we don't have 2 more years of it. I mean, I'm led to believe that actually Under Armour walked away from the deal. So I don't know if that's true or not. But
anyway, to believe it's a mutual agreement, Mark.
Well, happy days, mate. Hummel for the next. How long is it? The next 5 years? Is it?
5 years. Yeah, it's a 5-year sponsorship.
Yeah, the next 5 years. So
5 years.
No. As I say, let's hope that this one is a happier relationship.
What you need to do is put Draper Tools on the front of the shirt, and we'll be over the moon. So, Southampton Football Club can confirm that it will be offering 2020-21 season ticket holders the option of receiving a full refund for the remaining balance of their season ticket. When the club launched the sales for this season, it was with the hope that supporters would have returned St Mary's increasing numbers by the end of the year. That obviously hasn't happened, as we all know. They were launched alongside the Saints Promise, which was a guarantee supporters would receive a pro rata refund for games that took place without supporters. Obviously, it's a pretty clear indication now that there's not going to be a return to St Mary's for the end of the season. They're offering full refunds. Obviously, please be aware that if you do decide to take that, there's no credit towards your season ticket next season unless you decide that's where you're putting it. So it's either kind of like the refunds themselves, Mark, isn't it? Get your refund in full, not be on the list for next season, and have to start from scratch, or use it towards next season's season ticket.
Yeah. So effectively,
be careful, everyone. Obviously,
what they're saying is a refund, or you can basically hold the money that's in your account.
Yeah.
And that can go towards the purchase of next season's season ticket. I mean, I just want to say by the by, Mark, very quickly that, for me, the club should never have brought out season tickets in the first place. The majority of Premier League clubs decided against bringing out season tickets altogether, and basically said that if they were bringing fans into the stadium, you pay per game the what games you see.
Yeah.
So I think that would have been the easier solution for the club. But fair play to them. They've recognised that the likelihood is, I would say the definite is that there's not going to be any fans back in stadiums, for a while to come yet.
Yes.
And I'm going to suggest the listeners as well that you can expect more of the same for next season as well.
I agree with that, unfortunately. Yep, totally agree with that.
Because the thing is you're not going to see, 35-seater or 32-seater stadium, fill come the first game of the season. That's not happening. It'll be a steady thing.
Yeah, what I will say is if you see full stadiums by 2022 or 2023, you count yourselves very lucky, because I don't see it much before that.
No, I mean, my own take on it is, Mark, that by June 2022, this will be over and done with.
Yep.
And it'll be the 22-23 season when you will see, a return at least of fans. It might not even be full capacity then, but you see a proper return of fans as such.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So the next set of stories are actually relating to the academy itself, actually, which is quite good as well. So Tyreek Johnson has completed a permanent move to Gillingham. Callum Slattery has completed a loan move to Gillingham. And also, Saints have teamed up with Asante Kotoko of Ghana. So expect to see an influx of Ghanaians at some point, or some really good quality Ghanaians. And Ghana do produce some good footballers, Mark, as we know. But Tyreek Johnson, permanent move to Gillingham, and Callum Slattery's gone there on loan. And I do believe both of them contributed to Gillingham's recent win, I believe.
Yes, and I actually forecast on the pod that he would end up moving to Gillingham permanently.
Now it again.
So Tyreek Johnson has left the building. good move from Mark.
Yeah.
The thing is, they call him youngster, and I want people to get out of this mindset. You
He's not that
stop
young.
being a youngster once you pass 19 in football terms. For me, you're not a youngster
Yeah,
anymore.
absolutely right.
You know,
Absolutely right. Yep.
and as soon as he turned 21, once the club knew he was making an impact, I think that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And as for Callum Slattery, who knows where his future lies? He was one that was really, really talked up by the club's coaches and everything else, and you do sort of wonder, because like the likes of Luke Shaw and things like that, people like that. Arsenal were after Callum Slattery when he signed for Saints and stuff like that there. And you do kind of wonder whether he's now going to make the grade or not, to be honest. I think I said on the podcast at the start of last season that obviously he'd fallen out of favour with Ralph Hasenhüttl because he'd come back a stone overweight when it came to the weigh-in. And it's a strange one because you actually look at that and he hasn't actually featured for Saints since.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a very strange one, but there we go. And yeah, Callum Slattery on loan, it's probably a good move for him as well, actually. He's probably needed to move on, and there's an awful lot, there's a plethora of midfielders, and he looks as though he's quite a way down the pecking order, so it made sense for him to move on as well, didn't it?
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. Good luck to them, and hopefully, Callum obviously will help him get the experience that he needs.
Yeah.
I think going to Holland was a bit of a mistake last season. I would have formed him out there at the domestic club and sort of seen what his form was looking like then. But
yeah, me too.
Good luck to both of them.
Definitely. So, Southampton Football Club is delighted to welcome Asante Kotoko SC, one of the leading professional clubs in Africa, to its growing portfolio of international club partners. So, obviously, they've now got club partners in Australia, Japan, North America, the Middle East. So, yeah, North America, Middle East, Australia, and Japan, and obviously now Africa. So, extending that portfolio of international partner clubs, and probably clubs they're looking to garner the top talent from, I would think, Mark, over the next few years. Trying to save themselves a bit of money in the transfer market, I would guess.
Yeah,
probably part of the strategy, isn't it? I guess makes sense.
I always wonder about these sort of things, though, Mark, because I actually think it's more the partner clubs that benefit. I always tend to think that we tend to get the thin end of the wedge.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
It's a little bit like, when we had the partners, we were going to have the partnerships with the clubs in China.
Yep.
Right? And it seemed that obviously they were gaining more experience from the Saints coaches than it being a mutual sort of setup.
Exactly.
But then I do find it interesting, obviously, because obviously our new signing, Mr. Salisu's gone in. And but I mean, at the end of the day, if we're helping develop football in those countries and develop coaching techniques and players, then that's fine. But I don't think we'll be seeing anybody, like you're suggesting, I don't think we're going to be seeing anybody from any of those clubs in the next few years.
It won't be for a while yet. It's going to take a while before that actually filters through, if it does at all, to be fair.
Not unless, I mean, in the case of, the Ghanaian team that we've signed up with, unless we're unearthing a Jordy Weir or somebody like that there, I don't think it's going to be happening anytime soon.
I'm not sure we should mention George Weir in Saint circles, Mark. It didn't end well last time, did it?
Yeah. But hang on. Just remember one thing. Even though they say Jordy Weir's cousin, they weren't even related, Mark.
No, they weren't. They weren't
even related.
And for anyone who doesn't know, I think you'll find Ali Dia was actually a local student. So
that's exactly.
Made it worse. But anyway, moving on. The Premier League has today issued the following statement in relation to the introduction of concussion substitutes trial. Premier League shareholders formally agreed to introduce the International Football Association Board's additional permanent concussion substitutions trial. The trial will be confirmed when the implementation of the process, including private medical information, has been resolved. With player welfare the Premier League's priority, protocols will allow a maximum of 2 concussion substitutes to be used per team, with the opposition side able to use the equivalent number. Thank God, at long last, they've actually seen some common sense, Mark. Hallelujah.
100%. Let's hope this is used correctly, though, Mark, absolutely. And it's not open to abuse by the bigger sides.
No. And if you want an example,
or the bigger clubs, and I mean that genuinely.
Absolutely. You know? And if you want an example, if FIFA and the FA and the Premier League and everyone else want an example of when those 2 substitutes could be used and should have been used, David Luiz and Raul Jimenez was the perfect game when that should have happened. Yeah. Luiz and Jimenez both should have been off the field, not just Jimenez.
Yeah.
Luiz should have gone off the field as well, because he clearly took a blade to the head, and they both should have been substituted.
I'll go back to an incident with us.
Yeah.
What was it? Was it West Ham? Shea Adams, Craig Dawson.
Yep.
To me, that's concussion. That was a blatant. I don't care if the player thinks that he's fit to continue. No, it's not up to the player. Follow the protocols in regards to, if somebody receives a heavy blow.
The thing is, you watch a boxing match. If a guy gets knocked out, the doctor's straight in there, and then the fight's ended. It should be the same in football. If a guy's taking a blade to the head, you get him off. It's as simple as that. Yeah. It's not worth risking it. We've had too many footballers die of dementia as a result of heading footballs and whatever. Don't run the risk of people dying as a result of dementia in years to come from getting concussion playing football. It's not worth it. 100%. And look at the players themselves as well. The players have to look at themselves and say, do I want to risk my future health by saying I'm all right to carry on? I feel a bit groggy because I've got concussion. Have a little think about it.
The other thing I would say as well is, Mark, is I know it's only a trial, but thank goodness they've brought this forward. Because obviously they were going to, it sounded like there was going to be a trial basis at the start of next season, and then they were going to introduce it. But obviously they've brought it forward now. So obviously if the trial works out well, we'll definitely see it introduced for the start of next season, albeit well.
Yeah, hopefully. So we'll move on to the next article, which relates to 3 of Southampton's Premier League matches have been scheduled for February, obviously scheduled for live television coverage now, as part of the first bath of picks for the coming month. So the following games are now scheduled to take place as detailed. Man United versus Saints, Tuesday the 2nd of February, kick-off 8:15pm live on BT Sport. Saints v Chelsea, Saturday the 20th of February, kick-off 12:30pm live on BT Sport. And Everton versus Saints, Monday the 1st of March, kick-off 8pm live on Sky Sports. Everton game remains subject to possible movement should either club be involved in a rearranged match in the same midweek. So obviously, I guess that relates to obviously rearranged fixtures or cup games possibly.
Yeah.
So there we go. But those are the rearranged ones for February. And the Premier League today confirmed all matches from Saturday 30th of January to the last weekend in February will be made available to fans to watch live in the UK. So there we go. That brings you bang up to date on that. Over to Mark. Just get your quick thoughts on that, Mark.
Basically, all I was going to say, Mark, was in terms of if there's any sort of replays or stuff like that there that would, disrupt that for Saints fans, it would be, I just advise them to sort of keep updated on stuff in case they miss anything.
Yeah. Absolutely right. So moving on to women's football, and this woman just doesn't stop doing it, Mark, does she? Rachel Panting wins the Sportsbet.io Goal of the Month. I think she's actually, is it 2 months consecutively now she's won it? I do believe it is. So Rachel Panting's won the Goal of the Month award for December following a fan vote. The forward struck from distance again in the 5-0 win at Bournemouth in the Women's FA Cup, and the accolade after beating competition from Nathan Teller and Theo Walcott. Well, I'm sorry, guys, you two paled in comparison. Rachel Panting's was an absolute corker. So thoroughly deserved it. She's done it back to back now.
Yeah, the goals that garnered. I mean, I know, young Pussy's scoring all the goals at the minute, but the Rachel Panting's goals that she scores, there's something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
as a crazy often in football.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Richly deserved again. All I would say is I hope at some stage that they get the meter.
Oh, absolutely.
And all this nice down, mate, but...
well, hopefully one of the SDSA open days that's coming up at some point in the future, hopefully we'll get a meter at one of those.
Yeah, we'll say, make sure Rachel Panting's come along as part of the women's
absolutely.
Women's player.
Absolutely. Well, I think there's a well-used phrase in football that certain people don't score tap-ins, and she certainly doesn't score tap-ins, does she?
Definitely not, mate. But I mean,
I think if there was a chant about Rachel Panting, it'd probably be something along the lines of Rachel Panting, she scores screamers.
Again, I just hope and pray that the women's team are allowed to finish the season this time round.
Absolutely.
Even if it means extending it into June or July, Mark,
Oh, absolutely right. Absolutely right. So there we go. That brings us to the end of Saints Club news for the moment. So we'll take a very short break, and when we come back, it will be the second half of the pod, and when I'll be telling you exactly what's coming up in the second half.
It's Mark C and Mark H. Mark my word, they're here with everything in the Two Saints Show.
Right, welcome back, everybody. So coming up in the second part of the pod today, we have Saints in the press and Saints transfer gossip, other football news, Danny Ings, is he staying put or is he leaving? Two Saints preview of Saints versus Arsenal in the FA Cup and in the League Cup. So 2 games, 2 score predictions, and 1 preview. So anyway, Saints in the press and Saints transfer gossip. We'll start with the headlines and we'll go back to the very first one when we finish them. So Hampshire Live, Southampton, Mohamed Salah, Maguire, Saints owners could sell the club. This is coming from Kieran Maguire, who's I think he's a Premier League accountant, I believe, Mark.
Yeah, he's a football financial analyst. That's what he does for a living. Yeah.
Right. Hasenhuttl says the impact COVID's had on wages, etc., affects negotiations. Southampton are frustrated in their pursuit of their top target, but are looking at alternative options. Doncaster Rovers are not giving up hope of re-signing Southampton winger, and report says that Leicester want just 1.8 million for Leeds and Saints linked Damari Gray. So that's your first lot of Saints in the press. So what do you make of those, Mark? Starting with Southampton, obviously Ralph Hasenhuttl saying, speaking out about early months. Mohamed Salah speaking about early months at Southampton. And struggling with the weather.
It's Salisu, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, struggling with the weather.
From what I read of the article and what I understand, Mark, it wasn't really Ralph making any comments.
No, it's Mohamed Salah speaking about the struggles with the weather.
About him coming to terms with the conditions in Britain. And, you know, the thing is I don't know what our supporters expect, right? You know, you're bringing in a player. Yes, admittedly, you're going to have people that are going to hit the ground running, right? But the thing is if you're bringing in a player that's raw, right, and probably Diallo's the exception to the rule on that one, right? Yeah. But if you're bringing in somebody who's young and raw, you know, the chances are they're going to take an amount of time to adjust. And like I keep saying to you, if you're coming from the lower leagues or you're coming from abroad, you know, and you're fairly young, you're going to need time to adjust, and they need a season to get properly bedded in. And then the second season is when you judge them properly. All right, I understand the frustrations and the fact that we haven't seen them yet.
Yeah.
Right. But all I would say to the Saints supporters out there is remain patient, you know. Obviously, he's been talking about the weather while he's been here. And I think it's been a bit of a culture shock from him.
Yep.
For him, I mean, but as I say, he'll adjust to it, and I have no doubt that we'll probably see, you know, the best of him given time. But absolutely. You just gotta be patient with it. The thing is it's different when you're buying a player who's 24, 25, and their career has advanced already in football. Yeah. Like we're seeing when we're signing the likes of Pella, you know, Tadic, people like that, they're going straight into the team. The problem is with our sort of transfer policy as is now, that, you know, it's about buying players who are ready or not ready, depending on the type of player that it is, you know, and you do run that risk, but you've got to give them time to get bedded into the club.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. Definitely. Yeah, no, and I think that's definitely been the case for him. He seems to have struggled a bit. He's had these injuries and stuff, and it obviously quite clearly it's more a case of acclimatising, isn't it? Yannick Vestergaard's obviously spoken about the fact he's seen him in training, knows what he's about. Ralph said the same thing. So, you know, hopefully you get yourself sorted, Mo, and hopefully we see you play before too long and we're all impressed by what we see. But you definitely won for the future, as Ralph said. So let's not expect too much from him too soon.
the other good thing is Mark, that the club aren't under any pressure to throw him in
Absolutely
at
right.
the minute.
Yeah.
You know, and the other thing as well is that, you know, I trust the club for to throw him in at a point where he is ready to, you know, he's good to go, he's ready to go, and then we will see the best of him. But until that point, what's the point of putting him in there if the club feel that, you know, is conditioning it? Because I do think it comes down to conditioning. The conditioning isn't right.
Yep.
You know, he keeps getting muscle injuries and stuff like that. You know, and it is, don't get me wrong, people, it's disappointing, but I just think at the end of the day, the club will get it right. And when he does make his debut, you know, we'll see the player that we're all looking forward to seeing.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And the thing is, as well, it's the worst time of year to be picking up injuries because when it's cold, you tend to pick them up more. Muscle injuries are more frequent in the winter, to be fair. It's a lot colder, so it's a lot harder to keep your muscles warmed up and get warmed up in the first place. And obviously, if your muscles are quite cold, you run the risk of strains and sprains and all sorts. So, and we've seen a lot more of that recently. So, and it's kind of coincided with the cold weather. So it can't be a coincidence, definitely.
Yeah. And all I'd
Anyway.
say to him is if you're listening, Mr. Salisu, you know, if you think it's cold at the minute, wait till the weekend when you see the snow, Mish.
See. Well, all I would say, little tip, Mo, something I did when I played hockey. If you're finding issues getting your muscles warm, a little bit of deep heat on the back of your hamstrings does wonders. Warms them up quite nicely. Anyway, moving on to the next story. Southampton are treading water financially, and the worrying losses the club is making could mean Gao Jisheng is left with no option but to sell up. This is according to finance expert and New Football Insider columnist Kieran Maguire, speaking exclusively to correspondent Adam Williams after Southampton released their end-of-year financial report. Maguire believes that sacrifices will have to be made for Saints to navigate this bumpy fiscal period, which could mean they are forced to sell their finest assets. An owner, Ji Shang, might want to pass the burden on to a new owner. He reckons it's going to be a tough year for Southampton. They could be sold if the owners decide they don't want to fund the losses. They clearly do have assets which are very valuable in the form of players. That's quite a worrying statement from an outsider to make, Mark. Let's hope it's way wide of the mark. Because I know some people would like to see the club sold and more money coming in, but there's no guarantee that anybody that comes in is going to be any better than what we've got already, is there? So, worrying times, I think.
All I would say is like, I know people jump up and down, and it, you know, to the degree of fairness when I'm saying this, Mark,
Yeah.
right? You know, I've been surprised the amount of clubs that have been taken over during the pandemic.
Yep.
You know, I would have thought during the pandemic there would be no takeovers, but we've
Exactly.
seen Burnley's been taken over and numerous other clubs, Charlton, you know, all sorts of different clubs have been taken over. So there are people out there willing to invest.
Yeah.
Mind you, I say about Burnley, you know, I'm reticent about what style of ownership or leadership they're going to have with the new owners, but we'll watch this space and see. But what I was going to say to you was yeah, I mean, and I get that people want to see a new owner brought in, and you know, this guy's suggesting that basically, you know, Guy might be tempted to sell up. I don't think he will. I mean, he might wait. You know, I think we're stuck with him for as long as this pandemic lasts, I think. And
the thing is, as well,
it might be detrimental to the football club, mate, you know.
The thing is, he's also coming for a lot of abuse from over the fact he's not put a lot of money in. You know, and we've complained about the fact he's not invested. But the truth of the matter is, in the cold light of day, China have prevented him from taking any money out, even if he wanted to. So even if he wanted to invest in the club, his hands are tied by the Chinese government. And also, this pandemic hit us right on top of all that. So the chances of that happening now are so remote. I'm not defending him. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying this is obviously what we've been made aware of has been going on behind the scenes. But it doesn't excuse the fact that in 5 years, we've had no investment for our owners. So we are in trouble as a result of that. Apart from the pandemic.
That's an old one. That honestly, mate, that's an old one. That conversation was 3 years ago.
It still goes on now, unfortunately.
We're talking about the now. Yeah, we're talking about a man who wants to sell. Wants to sell, but there's nobody out there wanting to buy.
Would you?
He wants to sell. You know, he wants to sell. He's already made it clear.
Would you buy it at the moment?
It's a hands-off owner. I keep
Would you
saying
buy
this,
at the moment?
it's a hands
I agree
off.
with you. Would you buy at the moment?
No, I wouldn't.
There you go.
I wouldn't. You know, who's going to commit financial suicide if you're well?
I'm surprised. I'll be honest with you. I'm surprised anyone took over at Burnley, given the current climate financially. But there you go. Anyway, so we'll move on to the next story and get off the whole thing about the owner, because I think we've done that to death, to be fair, on more than one occasion.
Yep.
Ralph Hasenhüttl has admitted that the financial impact caused by the coronavirus pandemic has impacted the way the club negotiates new contracts with its players. They've obviously tied down a few in recent months, the likes of James Ward-Prowse, Aurelio Romeo, Jan Bednarek, Stuart Armstrong. They're obviously trying to sort out contracts with Danny Ings and Ryan Bertrand, which haven't happened yet. Ralph's obviously saying it's difficult with the situation at the moment financially to do that. Let's just hope if they manage to get some players off the books, be it loans or whatever, Mark, to free up enough wages to be able to keep Danny Ings and Ryan Bertrand on. Although I can't help thinking, at some point, where did you say you feel the players being a little bit greedy?
Well, I'm not going to comment on that, Mark, and obviously I'm going to reserve on that piece because we're going to be talking about it later on in the show anyway.
Absolutely.
But all I would say is for Ralph to come out and say, obviously, and we all know, know we're not stupid. We see what's happening outside the wider world, you know. And I think the thing is like, I'd love to think the players would tone down their expectations in terms of salaries and stuff like that there, you know. But as I say, I'll come on to that later on in the show. I'm going to hold fire for the time being.
We're obviously covering that when we get to Danny Ings, etc. as well. So, yeah. Anyway, Saints have been frustrated in the pursuit of their top target and are looking at alternative options. Southampton are running out of patience in their attempts to sign Brandon Williams on loan from Man United during the January transfer window. And they're obviously looking at alternative targets at the moment. With the fixture schedule more congested in the London traffic at rush hour, you can understand why the Premier League leaders may be having second thoughts about letting their Vastar Academy graduate go. No, I don't understand that one because he's barely playing for them.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't understand the sticking point on that one, Mark, to be fair.
No, I don't, to be honest. But Mark, I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm going to turn around and say, even though for the last however long I've banged on about, you know, Brandon Williams coming in, I am now of the opinion that he probably will stay put. Yeah. And Man United will make sure that he stays put, because obviously at the moment it's all about the depth of squad. You know, it's ironic that we're saying this, right? But because of COVID, we're sat there thinking it is all about your depth of squad. You know, 100%. And the thing is you know, they're as we speak at the moment, they're top of the Premier League, right? Yeah. And you know, all it takes is one injury, and Brandon Williams could get his opportunity. So it's now my belief that he won't be coming to us, and if Saints are you know, I do believe probably Saints are looking at other alternatives, but whether they bring in a left back or not is, you know, who knows? Who knows at the end of the day? You know.
So we'll move on to Josh Sims. Doncaster Rovers are keen to bring back Josh Sims from Southampton if they're able to, according to Sky Sports Live. The wing has now returned to his parent club after an impressive first half of the season on loan at the Keepmoat. Darren Moore's side have been dealt a double blow over the past 48 hours, with Sims going back to key midfield, and key midfielder Ben Whiteman leaving for Preston North End. So they want Sims, Mark. Is it time Josh Sims moved on, given that he's actually 23 years old now, so he's on the cusp, isn't he? Does he leave or does he stay?
Right. So here's my reading of it, Mark. Right. Yeah. And this really baffled me, and I've read this obviously since I, you know, compiled what we're going to be talking about. Right. Yeah. I mean, Ralph was asked about Josh Sims because obviously he's back at the football club now, right? Yeah. Yeah. And he's turned around and he said he's, you know, he is an option, but he's not ready at the moment, right? In terms of, no, listen, this is what he said. In terms of, and this is what baffled me, right? In terms of the training that we do and everything else. And I'm sat there and I'm thinking to myself, hang on a minute. We're talking about a player who was involved in pre-season training. Are you saying all of a sudden that the training at Southampton has intensified over the last few months or whatever, while he's been at Doncaster.
Well, if that's the case, that tells me that's why we're getting so many injuries.
I'm baffled by this one. I don't understand how, and I'd love Ralph to explain it to me. I don't understand how he has fallen out of favour so much. He's not. I mean, we've been fortunate enough to meet him. I mean, he's one of those people that doesn't look like he'd say booty a goose.
Yep.
So how it's not like you'd sit there and go, he's a problem child, So absolutely baffled. But given the length of, I'm just going to say this, Mark, right? Irrespective of Ralph feeling that he's far off, being ready to go into the first team squad or the first team, right? I'd say this. I'd say, given the length of injuries that you've got, and given the amount of injuries you've got in the position that he plays, much as I want to sort of see him sold, because I think we'll get money for him, QPR's allegedly interested, we get money, we can bring in Demarai Gray, that article's coming up in a minute. But at the moment, I sit there and I think, given the raft of injuries we've got in his position, I'd say keep him. But I'm baffled by the comment of Ralph about this training thing. I really am. And I sort of sit there and I think to myself, that just sounds a little bit like to me that you want them out the door, whether that's on loan or whether that's on a permanent. And if that's the case, that's fine. But I'd really want to see that money invested in the next article.
Give me both. Yeah, so the next article is a report that claims Leeds and Southampton linked start is available for 1.8 million from Leicester. So Demarai Gray, apparently Leicester City want just 1.8 million for winger Demarai Gray, given its contract is set to expire at the end of the season. Mid reports Leeds United and Southampton are keen. Now, given the financial position we're led to believe our club are in, Mark, unless they get rid of Josh Sims and a couple of others, it's probably not likely to happen. He's likely to end up at Leeds, isn't he? But I'd like to see him at Saints.
Yeah.
For that money, it's ridiculous. It's a no-brainer, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I look, the thing is, Mark, I've been going on about this for ages because, last week it was believed that, we weren't making a move to the summer. And as I suggested on the pod last week, if that's the case, it'll be too late for us. If there is, I mean, obviously this is all just paper talk. If there is the possibility to move now, let's move now. Absolutely. If it means being able to secure him. Because, if we leave it to the summer and he's on a free, like I said to you before, there's going to be a bus queue and we're going to be at the end of it. We're going to be at the absolute end of it.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. Yeah, 100%. Definitely agree with that. Yeah, 100%. So that brings us to the end of that little section on Saints transfer news and Saints transfer gossip. So we're just going to take a very short break. And when we come back from that, we'll do football and it'll be COVID stories to start with, and then we'll be giving you other news from the week as well.
Fiesta 95 FM, the Two Saints Show.
Right, welcome back, everybody. So this is football news, and this relates to the COVID-19 situation at the moment. Stopping players celebrating is a joke, says Cardiff City boss Neil Harris. London Stadium cancelled events will help save £7.4 million in taxpayers' money. And the last one is Mauricio Pochettino, Paris Saint-Germain boss, tests positive for COVID-19 after just securing his first trophy for them in about 11 days. So didn't take him long to get his first trophy, Mark. Unfortunately, he's tested positive for COVID. So a bit of a dark cloud to that silver lining for him, wasn't it?
No, I mean, let's cover the last story first, because that's easily covered.
Yeah.
Obviously, as the ex-Saints manager, we all wish him well and a speedy recovery.
Definitely.
I was surprised, let's say, to hear, to read that story. So, Maurizio, we wish you well.
Yeah, it didn't take him long to get his first trophy at PSG, though, did it?
No, definitely not. But as I say, so good luck to him and speedy recovery, Mr. Pochettino.
Absolutely, yeah. Get well soon, Mauricio, and good luck to you. Best wishes to your family as well, obviously. Thinking of them at this time as well.
Yeah.
So, the first of the COVID stories, Mark, was...
going back to the first one. So, this is a remark by the Cardiff City manager Neil
Neil
Harris. Basically, he's turned around and he said, you can't, stop players from celebrating, or why? I mean, it sounded more like, why should they stop from celebrating? The thing is, I mean, look, I get it. There's an argument that people put forward, right, where they're turning around and they're saying, well, they're training together, right? They're playing football, because people are tugging each other, or there's physical contact going on in the box when people are defending corners, or whatever scenario you like to look at, Mark, right? But the thing, in isolation about the goal celebration, and this is the point that I would say, is it's how it looks, how it's perceived by the average Joe public.
I'll tell you 2 reasons why it shouldn't happen, okay? And Neil Harris can do this off his own back if he wants to, okay? If he wants to know the 2 reasons it shouldn't be happening, number 1, go to your local hospital and have a look in their intensive care unit. And number 2, look at every single person in the country who's been unable to hug their nan or their parents or people they love, but you lot can pretty much do whatever you want.
100%. And the thing is, but it goes back to what I'm saying. It's public perception, right? And the thing is that even if you're not a football fan, right? If somebody because the thing is, football's on the TV, especially during the pandemic, the whole time, right?
Yeah.
You're an average person that has no interest in football, and you're seeing that, you're thinking, I haven't been able to see anybody close to me.
Yeah.
Why should they be able to, and I get it. I'm sure. Look, Mark, the thing is what I'm saying is, I'm sure it is difficult for professional footballers when you score. Your natural instinct is to celebrate, but please understand that, it shows when managers come out and say things like that, it shows a complete lack of understanding for the situation that the nation's in, that the world's in, never mind the nation.
So moving on to news about the London Stadium. The cancellation of plunge showpiece events at London Stadium last year will help save the London taxpayer £7.4 million, a new report has found. It shows cost fell as the COVID-19 crisis led to events, most notably Major League Baseball in June 2020 and Athletics anniversary games the following month being called off. Yep, that's great. Wait. And I'm sure the taxpayer would probably argue if West Ham weren't there, they'd save even more money.
Do you know something? I was going to say, better still, what about West Ham just paying for the stadium?
Exactly that.
You know what I mean? Rather than the taxpayer. There you go. I mean, I just thought I'd include it because I thought to myself, well, at least there's some money coming back. But at the end of the day, I still turn around and say, I mean, I don't believe in rent-free, mate. I don't believe in scot-free. And, £2 million, as we covered last week, to pay £2 million annually for that stadium, no wonder they can afford to say to Sebastian Haller, I tell you what, we're paying 45 million for you, but we're going to allow you to leave for 20 million euro.
Well, the point is, Mark, another way of looking at it, the cynical way of looking at it would be, you could turn around and go, well, because they're only paying that much to the stadium, they've completely found a way around FIFA fair play rules, haven't they?
Oh, well, that's how they negate it, mate, because they're not even having to pay for the... I mean, it's £2 million an embarrassment for the stadium that they've got, but... look, at the end of the day, if you're a football club and you're given that kind of deal, who's not going to take it? I know we might sit here and talk about it, but the thing is like, if somebody did that with Saints, you and I'd be sitting there going, yes, please, thank you very much.
Of course we would, 100%. 100%. Well, even more so at the moment, to be fair. Anyway, we'll move on to the rest of this week's football stories. So again, we'll give you the headlines and we'll start from the top of those once we've finished. So, Robert Snodgrass, Premier League investigates West Brom signings admission against West Ham. And Premier League, West Brom versus Fulham will be shown live on the BBC. Definitely. So moving on to Championship news. This was an article that didn't appear on the list that I gave you, everybody. So I do apologise as I missed this one. It was Derby County. Wayne Rooney has been confirmed as manager of Derby County. So Championship side Derby County have appointed England's record goal scorer Wayne Rooney as the new manager on a 2.5-year contract. So the 35-year-old in the interim charge, obviously, is now officially retired as a player.
Am I really that shocked that they've appointed him? Not really. Derby County, I've got to be honest, is a bit of a Mary Celeste club at the minute, because I don't know whether you know or not, and I didn't realise this at the time, Mark, but Derby's actually imminently due to be taken over.
Yeah.
So new owners there. So like I keep saying, there's new owners. I don't know how this COVID thing works, but there seems to have been more new owners during the COVID period than any other time that I can think of. But anyway, the thing is a little bit of a no-brainer, I suppose, for Derby. You know, a little bit of stardust in the sense that it's Wayne Rooney. But I personally think, you know, they're in trouble at the minute. Obviously under threat of relegation. I do think that he probably keep them up by the skin of his teeth, but I think it's, if I'm honest, unless the new owners come in before the window shuts or Derby are able to do any loan deals, you know, they're basically going to have to go with what they've got.
Yeah.
And I do think it'll be a close run thing to whether to stay up or not. Because Wayne, when he first got appointed, he did have it was a new manager effect, if you like, right? I mean, not when he was appointed, when he was put in as interim manager, there was a bit of a bounce. And recently, I mean, it seems to be 1 week he's winning one, then he's drawn, then they're losing one, then he's winning again, then he's losing again, you know. So this is why I'm sort of saying to you, I think it'll be a little bit of a roller coaster ride for Derby County. But looking at it, I still think there should be enough there to keep them up. I mean, you know, they beat Bournemouth, you know, and Bournemouth again. Obviously, their form's been a little bit inconsistent of late, but as a whole, you know, they've done fairly well, and you know, Derby managed to beat them the other night. So it just seems to be that at the minute Derby's in a flux where, you know, they're winning one, they're losing one. But let's hope for their supporters' sakes that the takeover happens before the transfer deadline, and they're able to bring in one or two new bodies, whether that's on loan or not, you know. Yeah. But I think that's fairly important for them, because otherwise they're going to struggle, you know, till the end of the season, irrespective of who's in charge. But I say good luck to Wayne. I mean, let's be honest, the last time Derby had a young manager like that, it was very successful. You know, they got to the playoffs under Frank Lampard.
Yeah, they beat us at St Mary's in the Cup as well.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on from there. Robert Snodgrass. The Premier League investigate West Brom signing's omission against West Ham. Robert Snodgrass' omission from the West Brom squad beaten at West Ham on Tuesday has been investigated by the Premier League. The former Scotland midfielder joined Albion from the Hammers on the 8th of January for an undisclosed fee, making his debut in Saturday's win at Wolves. He, however, missed the West Ham game because of an agreement between the clubs, West Brom boss Sam Allardyce said. The Premier League will examine whether competition rules have been broken. Under normal circumstances, Snodgrass would have been eligible to play against West Ham as his transfer was permanent. It's only with loan deals that such restrictions apply in the Premier League. In those circumstances, the player cannot face their parent club. Allardyce said, "We could only get the deal done with that agreement. There was an agreement between the clubs that this game would not be allowed to be. In this game, he would not be allowed to play." Premier League Rule 17 listed in the competition's handbook states no club shall enter into a contract which enables any other party to that contract to acquire the ability material to influence its policies or performance of its teams in league matches. Well, I would argue by doing that, they've done exactly that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is it's a breach, mate, and basically what should maybe happen there is West Ham not be awarded the win, but I wouldn't. But because of where West Brom is, I wouldn't give them the win neither. I mean, at the end of the day, they lost the game. So from my perspective, it would be a case of West Ham forfeiting the 3 points that they've gained, and that's what the punishment should be. But again, as you know, it'll probably go to some sort of arbitrational committee, and they'll end up paying a fine. But that's not the way it should work, because at the end of the day, they signed Robert Snodgrass on a permanent. All right, it was on an 18-month contract, but they signed him on a permanent. And as far as the rules go, you can only not play against a parent club if you're at that club on loan.
For me, it's very simple. You break the rules, you should be accountable for it. End of. There you go. So moving on, another story relating to West Brom. Obviously, I think we covered the Robert Snodgrass one. So our opinion on that, for anybody that was interested in that, our opinion basically is that the rules were breached and they should pay for it. So West Brom versus Fulham, Mark, will be shown live on the BBC. West Brom's home match against Fulham on Saturday, the 30th of January, will be broadcast on BBC One, the BBC Sport website, and the iPlayer. So that's an absolute mouth-watering feast of football we'll look forward to, isn't it? West Brom versus Fulham.
Well, the thing is, always like to throw it in the mix, because we're talking 3D air, Mark. Yep. And I know you're full of laughter, but some of us don't have the capabilities of others. Oh, I forgot. No, you've withdrawn your Amazon Prime subscription, didn't you? After it stopped to be free. Silly me. Free trial.
Take advantage of the free trial. End it before you get paid charge for it.
All I'd say is like, it's another opportunity for those people that don't have subscription services to watch free football.
That's right. Yeah, I'm not making light of the fact that other people don't get to watch it. I just meant that really exciting game that'll be to watch on TV. West Brom versus that'd be a classic.
I know what you meant. Yeah.
So we'll move on from there. Danny Ings, is he leaving or staying put? Ralph Hasenhüttl confirms Danny Ings could leave Southampton for a bigger club. Release clause is the key to Danny Ings' Southampton stalemate. And these foolish Ings, the rumour mill goes into overdrive about Danny. So there's an article obviously in the Ugly Inside that relates to Danny Ings. Ralph Hasenhüttl was apparently confirmed that he could leave Southampton. Now, I don't actually remember those exact words coming out of Ralph's mouth, so I think that's been open to interpretation from the media. And we all know how the mass media works, Mark. Now, my take on it is very simple. You've made some very bold statements, Danny, about where your heart was, wanting to emulate Ricky Lambert, and blah, 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 blah. If you're not going to be staying at the club, drop the pretense. Drop the act and tell the truth. It's as simple as that. You're either going to sign your contract or you're going to move on. Now, if it's just about a release clause, don't really understand why you need one. If you're in the form of your life and playing great football, people will pay whatever fee you should be going for because you're good enough. You shouldn't need a release clause. So it's left a very sour taste in my mouth, Danny. I've been one of your biggest fans since you came to the club, and I'm very disappointed if you leave.
I mean, all I would say is you're bang on the money with those sentiments, Mark. I mean, I think the thing is that, you finally feel like you're getting somewhere. You've got, because, I've been able to reflect, since all this sort of blew up, right? Yeah. And I understand what sort of the likes of Nick Illensworth's getting at. I mean, he said, it's all speculation, it's all paper talk.
Yeah.
But to be fair, we all know that people get hold of stuff. Yeah. And unfortunately, there is often a degree of truth to these things, right? Yeah. And the thing is all I want to comment on is if it is a question, because we're all led to believe that it's a question of the release fee, and I agree with you. I sort of think to myself, if he's in the form of his life, which he is at the minute, and the club, Danny was responsible for looking after his fitness. I don't deny that, right? But the club was also responsible for giving him the platform when the career was on the down escalator, and the encouragement of the club when he was going through, injuries now and again, even when he first came to Saints. Let's be honest about it. I was one of the people. I wanted him to be successful. Obviously, I did, because as long as he's successful, the team's being successful because you've got a goal scorer on your hands.
There are two big things that stick out on this whole thing with Danny Ings as well. The fact that Saints are losing £3 million a month roughly at the moment, which is roughly what every team's probably losing. So they're losing about £3 million a month at the moment. They've got to find the extra money in order to sort this contract out with Danny Ings. They've offered him a contract that makes him the highest paid player at Saints, even higher wages than Fraser Forster's on. But also they've got a similar problem to Leicester in the fact that if Danny Ings was to go to Leicester, for example, to replace Vardy, Leicester's problem is if Jamie Vardy left, they have to find money to replace a man who, if he was 27, would cost them £50 to £60 million in terms of his goal scoring value. Now, we're led to believe Danny Ings and the club are about 20 million apart on the valuation regards to his release clause. Mm-hmm. My argument would be the club should be saying, look at Leicester, Danny. If Jamie Vardy left Leicester tomorrow, Leicester would have to find 50, 60 million quid for a guy if he was 27, would cost him 50 to 60 million quid. That is why we're saying your release clause should be blah, blah, blah. Now, if Danny Ings is saying, I want my release clause at 15 million, and Southampton are going, well, we want it at 30 million, greatest respect, Danny, in the world, Southampton Football Club are absolutely right to do that. Because they are trying to make sure they have enough money to replace you. Because they do have to replace you.
Yes.
Why should Southampton put themselves in a position where you can swan off to a top, whoever it is, club that are playing Champions League football, and Saints end up with not enough money to replace you? Because that's the crux of it, isn't it?
Right. Okay, time out. So I just want to go back to what I was saying, mate, is I feel disappointed. Yeah. You know, if he wants to leave, I don't want to see him leave.
Me either.
You know, I just want to see it state that I don't want to see him leave. But the thing is
do me a favour if you are staying, Danny Ings. Stop kissing the club badge.
The thing is like I'm fed up with players who use Saints as a springboard for their career. Right. You know, if the newspaper stories are to be believed about the Champions League, and because the release clause is all part of that, mate. You know, at the end of the day, it's a bit like you turned around and said the agent said, and I said to you, yes, but who's representing him in those talks? The agent. Yeah. So exactly. You can't say that there's not prompting from Danny in that regard.
No, absolutely.
You know, I just, the way I look at it, Mark, is I don't understand. The thing is we look like we're going to be achieving something, maybe even in the seasons to come. It might not be this season, the seasons to come, right? Recently we've seen James Ward-Prowse, Stuart Armstrong, Jan Bednarek, Romeu, all sign new contracts, right? What message does that send out to those players that have already all signed their contracts, right? Bear in mind, we haven't even touched on Ryan Bertrand, but I think that's separate, and you know, hopefully that'll get resolved. But just on the Danny Ings thing, you know, if you profess to love the club that much, right, and you've admitted yourself that you're in a good place, you know, you're injury free, you're enjoying your football and everything else.
What are you saying? He's happy at Saints, Mark. That's the way I felt it.
I'm still feeling. Look, this release clause to me is a bit of a red herring because I'm still feeling to understand why he won't sign the contract. Because to me, Mark, that's like him turning around and saying, "I want the release clause to be lower," right? Yeah. So that tells me that, you know, he's looking for a move to a club that's going to be playing in bigger competitions.
It's a clever move from him and his agent as well, to be fair. No offence, Danny, but it is a clever move, and you damn well know it is, from him and his agent, in the fact that if somebody comes in and meets the release clause, it takes the heat off of him, because then the fans, you know how the fans work, and fans are quite fickle, Mark, at times. No offence, but they are. You and I both know that. They'll be looking at that going, well, you know, the club agreed to the release clause, the club's met it, it's their fault. And it will come back on the club. It won't come back on Danny Ings. The heat won't be on him. The heat will be on Southampton Football Club for putting a release clause in. And you know that as well as I do. So from his agent and him, it's very clever. But you know, they're not as clever as they think they are.
But like I say, I just want to put it in perspective, Mark, before I move. And then I'm going to give over about it. But all I would say is, let's remember one thing, folks. We're in the middle of a worldwide pandemic, right? And Danny Ings, if he was to sign the contract, you know, we're all led to believe that it'll make him the highest paid player in Southampton's history, right? And I just think even on that basis, even on a moral basis, why not just sign the contract? I mean, it just smacks of well, great. It does smack of greed, Mark, because the thing is right, because I think he's being given an awful lot of latitude here. I mean, we haven't heard from him. It'll be interesting to see if he ever does speak.
Yeah, exactly.
But the thing is Saints fans have poured Lallana over the coals. They've poured Lovren over the coals. Van Dijk. There's loads of other players that Saints fans, when they come to St Mary's, they get a hostile reception. All I'd say is if Danny Ings decides to move on, let's hope that the Saints fans give him just as much of a hostile reception, homeboy or not.
Damn right. I'll tell you something now, Mark, and I've said this to you, and I was very strong about this. You know my feelings with regards to the way Adam Lallana conducted himself. And I'll tell you something now, Danny Ings, you leave the club in the way you're talking about possibly leaving it, for me, you'll be no better than Adam Lallana. And I don't care what anyone else says about it. That's my personal view. Yeah, you leave Southampton Football Club after what you've said now, and some of the stuff you've said about wanting to emulate Ricky Lambert, it will make you no better than Dejan Lovren and no better than Adam Lallana. So if you do leave my football club, Danny Ings, don't expect a warm welcome from me when you come back, because you won't get one.
But it's awful, Mark. The last thing I'll say on it is it's awful, right? Because the thing is you've seen what's happened with him at the football club, right?
Yeah.
And you do feel like he's some sort of jilted lover already, because you're sort of fearing all right, we're only talking about press speculation, and I get all that, and I get what Nick Illingsworth is saying. But you only go on what you're hearing and everything else, and what you're reading.
The age-old adage, there's no smoke without fire, is there?
Well, no. But like I said, to put some perspective on it, if he does go, I'll be really disappointed, and I will probably. I mean, I've never done it before. I've got to be honest. Well, no, that's not strictly true. I've given Lovren the bird before. I haven't given any other Saints player the bird's left. No. But I've got a funny feeling that if he does leave, I'll be giving him the bird when he returns to St Mary's.
I can tell you this, you'll get more than that from me.
But it breaks my heart.
Oh,
it'll break my heart to see him leave, Mark. I've got to say that, because I do think that while he's with us, things are achievable. But while this is why it hurts so much. Like I say, it feels like a jilted lover, because you sort of sit there and you think all those people have signed up because they have bought into Ralph's vision for moving forward and achieving something, and at least on the cusp of something.
I know Ralph said something about Danny. It was quite tongue in cheek when he said, "Well, if he wants to play Champions League football, he should stay here and score another 15 goals, and then he can do that." Although that was quite tongue in cheek from Ralph, I thought he had a damn good point actually.
Yeah, no, it is. It's bang on the money. The thing is, I want to, if it is true that it's, because we're led to believe it's about the release clause, but if it is true that, the Champions League is in there anywhere, the thing is, Danny, you might be able to achieve it with Saints, and at the end of the day, is it your boyhood club? If there is that possibility of achieving with Saints, is it your boyhood club? Come on, man. Come on.
Boyhood club if you can stay here and go into the Champions League or into Europe with Saints if you're not prepared to stay here and do that.
Yeah. It's just I mean, look, we don't know. I just want to say to the listeners, this is just Mark and I giving our feelings on it. Yep. We don't want to see him leave the football club. We'll be highly delighted like everybody else if he signs the contract. But at this moment in time, it's not looking too clever.
And to be fair, we're just putting our feelings out there. Should he decide to depart, given everything he said, we're giving our feelings as to how we'll feel if that happens. Yeah. If he signs a contract, he's still a Saints player, we'll support him. That's how we work. But there you go. Anyway, we'll move on now to the two Saints preview of Saints versus Arsenal. So last time out in the FA Cup, this was Saturday the 28th of February 28th of January 2017. It was a 5:30 kickoff. There was an attendance of 31,288 at St Mary's. Blimey, that ain't going to happen for a while, was it? And it ended up terribly terrible for Southampton. Theo Walcott actually netted a hat-trick as the Gunners reached the FA Cup 5th round with a 5-0 win.
By the way, I just want to say there's a reason why that was 31,000 whatever, right? Because if I remember, it was live on some TV network. Can't remember who was carrying it, but the reason why there was 31,000 there, Mark, was because it was a £5 a ticket mush. That's why there was 31,000 there, right? And the thing is because I belly ached about going to this game, right? But then I thought, do you know what? That Frenchman is going to play a bunch of youngsters, and we're not going to go through, right? Yeah. Hence, we had the likes of Harry Lewis playing. Harrison Reed made one of his rare appearances for Saints, if I remember. And the thing is, and the irony about it is, right, we'll lose 5-0, right? But Theo Walcott, who, as I've stated before, okay, might have the odd trophy with Arsenal and all the rest of it, but it's a bit of a career unfulfilled for me. The irony is that particular night, he scored a hat-trick.
Well, it's even more ironic as well, because when we last played Arsenal, which was the 16th of December 2020, Theo Walcott actually scored for Saints after 18 minutes against Arsenal, and good goal as well, actually.
Yeah.
That game ended up 1-1. So it's a difficult one for me. I mean, I'm looking at the actual cup game, regards to the cup game, Mark. I don't know about the cup. I actually think Saints might actually just sneak this. I've got a funny feeling we might actually get a 1-0 in the cup game, but I've got a funny feeling that the league game's going to be a draw. I think the league game's probably going to be 2-2. And I think the cup game's probably going to be 1-0 to Saints. So I'm going 2-0 in the league, 1-0 in the FA Cup.
All I'm going to do is I'm going to say to you, Danny Ings is available for both games, apparently. Well, he won't be if he gets injured, obviously, in the cup game. But, to all intents and purposes, he's available. Yeah. But I think this is tough. I'm going to say that we're going to knock out the FA Cup holders on Saturday. Okay. And I'm going to say we're going to do it by a 1-0 scoreline.
Oh, it's not often we agree on the scoreline on here either, Mark. Right.
And, well, you see, it goes to show what attention I was paying, because I was trying to think what I was going to go for, and I didn't hear you say 1-0. So I'm going to say 2-0. I'm going to say 2-0. Right, and I'm gonna say 2-1 in the league game.
He's gone big, or he's gone big going home.
Yeah, because the thing is, and the reason why I've gone big is it's a bit like what Ralph said in the press conference for the game, right? He said, somebody, your mate on a blackboard, right, turned around and said to him, are you going to be prioritising, which game you want to win against Arsenal?
Yeah.
And Ralph came back with, well, I don't know about you, but I'd prioritise to win both games. Yeah. So, and the thing is like, and he was trying to challenge the players during that press conference to step up and win both games.
Well, to be fair, I think
to be fair, Mark, let's see if some of these young, it's great to win against Shrewsbury and that there, right? And I'm sure one or two of the youngsters will get used in the next two games, right?
Well, in fairness, I think
some of these academy products step up. And to be fair, I never mentioned them because I think we take them. I personally think we take them for granted now. But James Ward-Prowse, that man just plays every game. He is robotic, and the thing is we're lucky to have him.
Just to remind you all, you can contact us via our email address, the Two Saints Podcast Show at outlook.com, for questions or items you'd like to hear in future shows. You can listen to the radio show on Fiesta 95 FM in Southampton and via onlineradiobox.com. Also, the Two Saints Podcast Show is now available via Spotify, SoundCloud, Overcast, Acast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music and Podbean, or via our Facebook page, The Two Saints Show, and our YouTube channel, The Two Saints Podcast Show.
Yeah, I just wanna say thanks everybody for taking the trouble to listen, and at the end of the day, the whole world's in a bad state, just make sure that you take care of each other, look after each other, and keep well and stay safe.
Absolutely right. So thank you for joining us on the Two Saints podcast show today. And it's goodbye for now. And please join us again next week when the Two Saints go marching in again.